Hi, I'm Ananya. I'm a junior content manager with Trip 101. Today we're off to Scotland and I have here with me Aileen who's joining us. So welcome to the session with us, Aileen, firstly.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Eileen here is a local from Aberdeenshire. She grew up all over Aberdeen, various cities around the whole county. Went away and then came back. We're seeing the county today through the eyes of a local who is also seeing it a little bit new after being away from it for a little while. So I'm quite excited to discuss this destination today with you and glean from your knowledge as someone who has grown up over there and knows so much about it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
Eileen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you grew up in Aberdeenshire?
yeah, perfect. I grew up in a very small village in the middle of Aberdeenshire, really close to the coast, but also really close to the hills. It was a lot of outdoors and being outdoors a lot in my childhood. For as long as I could talk, I spoke about traveling. It was almost inevitable that I would end up traveling around, but I took my time. I went to high school and college and university in Scotland, in Aberdeenshire, before traveling. I traveled to South Africa while I was at uni. I traveled to Morocco and Tanzania. Then I went over to China to teach English in 2018 after I graduated, and spent time in China and Thailand and Myanmar. And I came home in 2021, just after COVID. So things were a bit different. It was an interesting time to come home. I started rediscovering Aberdeenshire through a different sort of lens, a lens that was more around travel than a local. I still consider myself a local. I definitely am a local, but in terms of the way I approach visiting places in Aberdeenshire, it's quite easy when you live somewhere to not explore that place. And
Yeah.
so Aberdeenshire being where I was from, I was like, right, I'm out of here. I'm going to wonderful places. And so when I came home and we couldn't travel outside of Aberdeenshire in 2021, it was finding all of the exciting things to do here. And from there, I didn't really stop finding the exciting things to do because Aberdeenshire is just full of stuff. So
That's so great that yeah, you went out, you explored the world, and then you came back and realized that there's so much back there within your
yeah,
immediate proximity that you were yet to see. We do get over familiar in the places that we stay in and then miss out on seeing them, like
yeah,
really seeing them. Yeah.
definitely. I think that's something people fall into quite a lot is, oh, this is just my hometown. There's nothing to see here. I need to go and get out and explore all these wonderful, completely different places, which is very important to do. I think it's very important to leave your
Yeah.
hometown and go and see new places. But when you come back to your hometown, to appreciate the beauty that is right on your doorstep, so important.
So where in Aberdeenshire are you now? Are you in the same village where you grew up?
No, I am still in a village, but it's a different village, and we actually have two very historic sites really close to us here. So I live in Pitmedden, and we have Pitmedden Gardens, which is a beautifully landscaped gardens, which has been around for a very long time. And then just up the road, we have Haddo House, which is a very popular spot both for locals and people who are visiting, and that's a big old country house like the likes of Jane Austen would have written about.
That's pretty great. If we talk about Aberdeenshire, could you tell us a little bit more about what is the terrain like? What can you see when you're in the area?
Yeah. So Aberdeenshire actually, a fun fact for you, has the most castles per square kilometer in the whole of Europe. We are out the door with castles. If you like castles, it's an excellent place to come. We have them in all states, like complete ruins of castles. If you've heard of Slains Castle, said to be the inspiration for Dracula's castle, we've got that, which is a complete ruin on a cliff. Will fall into the cliff probably in the next 50 years, off the cliff, sorry, into the water. And then we have beautifully looked after castles that are open to the public. So you can come and visit places like Fyvie Castle Fraser are open and well looked after, maintained at a sort of different time periods. Like the decor is different time periods for different castles. So there's a lot of variety in Aberdeenshire. And I think our main attraction is the castles and the history. On top of that, we have an excellent outdoors community and wildlife. You can see puffins if you go to the coast of Aberdeenshire, and you can see wild deer if you go a little bit further inland. There's red squirrels, there's foxes. We've got an excellent number of birds of prey as well. So we've got so much variety within such a small pocket. I think all of Scotland, I think you'll find such a good mix of history and the outdoors. But Aberdeenshire is maybe looked over a little bit sometimes. People go to Edinburgh, they go way up north and do the North Coast 500, but Aberdeenshire has all of those things in a nice little package, so we're not one to skip. So.
Yeah, for sure. When I was doing my research on Aberdeenshire, the castles showed up, but one more thing that did turn up over and over were the distilleries that kept getting mentioned.
Yes.
So castles and whiskey. A lot of these blogs were throwing up at me that this is what you do when you're in Aberdeenshire.
Definitely. We've got a lot of distilleries. We've got a very strong, it's not just whiskey, like in terms of beer and alcohol. Brewdog was founded in Ellen, which is where I went to high school. Beer, whiskey, but also gin. Gin's become a massive industry here in recent years. And we've got loads of distilleries that do whiskey, but they also do gin as well. So there's a lot of distilleries over here. So
Right. So I think that sounds like a perfect spot to explore the outdoors, explore history, and try local spirits that are being brewed. So it definitely sounds like a cool vacation to have.
tick all the boxes, all that Scotland bucket list. You come to Aberdeenshire, you'll tick most of them off. So.
Could you tell me a little bit about the seasons, how they vary in Aberdeenshire? If a traveler is planning to visit, what would be a good time for them, or how would they see it differently if they visited different parts of the
Yeah.
year?
Rainy season is January to December. You're going to get rain if you come to Scotland. Today is a beautiful sunny day. We're at the end of August. I would say August into September is the best time to come for the weather if you're looking for sun. Earlier in the year, it's more likely to rain. I hesitate to say that it won't rain if you come in September because we are still in Scotland, so it's probably going to rain. But I think that's part of the joy. My favorite place to go in Aberdeenshire is Benahee, and I have been up there in all weathers. It's so dramatic with the clouds, the stone, and the heather. I wouldn't be put off if you're worried about rain. It's not going to ruin your trip. August to September, best time to come for sunny weather. But
Hmm.
I think something that people also look for when they come to Scotland is that snow and those snowy fields or snowy peaks. And most of the mountains will have a little bit of snow on it throughout the year, less so now because of global warming, but we still have snow on some peaks all year round. If you're really looking for snow, I would come probably more towards March. You'll get a lot more snow towards the end of February and into March than you would in December or January. It might still snow in those months, but we do see a lot of snow in March. Things start to open up more in March. The tourist season in Scotland is March to October. So you're going to get a good number of venues open, like castles, if you're wanting to go inside them, they'll be open from March to October. It's a good idea to come either at the start or end of the season. And I would, obviously, it's not possible for everyone, but I would avoid the summer holidays. So the summer holidays in Scotland are the start of July to the middle of August. If you can come before or after that, you're going to get the places more or less to yourself. If you
Hmm.
come in that middle section, there's all of us from Aberdeenshire also in all of these places. So it's going to be a little bit more crowded, either the start of the tourist season, so March, or towards the end. So depends what weather you're looking for. Snow,
Yeah.
March, sun, August, September. Although if you don't get sun in August and September, please don't hold it against me. I can't control the rain, unfortunately.
That's quite known about England and Scotland that it can rain anytime.
Yeah,
Here in
we
Asia, we have very defined monsoon season,
yeah,
so we expect that it would happen elsewhere in the world as well, but
yeah.
it doesn't.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely rainy season all year round here. So sometimes that rain falls as snow and then it's pretty, so it's okay.
What you said about the winter, that snowy reserve, that must be quite pretty as well, because I think the castles would definitely look more magical with snow, a
Yeah,
little bit of snow.
definitely. And where
Yeah.
I live, we've just got fields and fields, and there's so many nice forest walks near me. That's the good thing about Aberdeenshire as well. You've got a lot of flat walks and a lot of hilly walks, so that it's good for all sort of abilities for the outdoors. But when it snows, Meadow Woods is absolutely beautiful, and I've caught deer, dancing in the snow, and you're just like, wow, where am I? This doesn't feel real. It just feels a bit magical.
You mentioned otters a little bit ago, and then deer that you have spotted in the winter. So, what are the wildlife that one can expect to see while in Aberdeenshire?
Yeah, so one of the best places in Aberdeenshire to go for wildlife is Newborough. Newborough is a small town right on the coast, and we've got Forvey Nature Reserve, and they have so many seals. I think it's over 100 seals. You can take your binoculars and spot them across the water. They all lie out across the sand, sunbathing, and they're so loud. It's just one of the most magical experiences to see. When we see seals, we usually see them in the water swimming around, but seeing them all laid out on the beach is fantastic. The nature reserve is specifically working to build up the seabird populations. There's lots of information there about different seabirds, and that would be my
So
top recommendation.
you can also see a lot of birds there.
Yes, yes, so many seabirds. Yeah, definitely worth seeing Scotland in the snow for sure.
But does it get really cold though?
It depends on what you find really cold. But yeah, it can get a bit cold. Obviously, we're not as cold as some places. Where we are is we're very well placed. In summer we've got the really long nights. Sunset isn't until about 10 o'clock. You can be out exploring or in a beer garden until late, and it's still beautiful sunshine. In the winter, we have the really small daytime and long nights, which makes everything that little bit more sparkly. And when the Christmas markets start getting set up, it starts to get more cozy. But the cold can probably get to about minus 10 degrees Celsius. It wouldn't usually get lower than that. If it does, then we're having a particularly cold winter.
Okay.
So minus 10 is probably the coldest for my area anyway. Further inland, you're going to start to get a little bit colder. And obviously, the higher up you get, the colder things can get. Summer only gets to about 25 degrees, which some people would say is still really cold. So, but I would say it's a different kind of heat. Like people always say that when they're visiting here, 25 degrees in Scotland is not the same as 25 degrees in Southeast Asia. It feels completely different, and it can feel very warm. We don't have aircon and things like that. You might be put off by that. Oh, it only gets to 25 degrees, but I wouldn't let that put you off, because it actually will feel very warm while you're here. You'll see everybody, the locals, we're all out sunbathing, picnic blankets and everything. As soon as it hits 25 degrees, we need that vitamin D.
5 degrees is what I call perfect weather.
Yeah.
Speaking of here in Delhi, because anything more than that gets intolerable on this side
Yeah,
of the world for sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
When I lived in Myanmar, 40 degrees through dry season and summer season was just, oh, as a Scottish blooded person, that was difficult for me. I was very glad of the aircon in all of the buildings. But I think the south of China was my ideal temperature. It got to about 30 degrees in summer, and winter only got to about 10 degrees. So yeah, south of China, I really like the temperature there.
So it must have been challenging to come back to Scotland when it got
My
so much.
first winter, yeah, actually, I got off the plane in 2021. I had to do quarantine hotel, which I'm sure is a familiar story for a few travelers. So I was in the quarantine for 10 days, and the day they let me out of quarantine, it was snowing. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's so cold. I'd come from 35, 40-degree heat in Myanmar into minus 5 degrees and snow. Where am I? So it would take a bit of an adjustment at first, because I didn't even have any of my winter clothes with me in quarantine. I just came with what I had. Yeah, if you're coming in winter, take a jacket.
But circling back to what we were discussing as a good time to come, you said it's
Yeah.
from March to October. And in that span, I think a variety of seasons can be experienced, because it starts off with snow and then leads to some sunny days. And finally, I think fall season where it'll be,
Yeah,
yeah.
so September, October, if you want to see the leaves changing color, then September, October is a perfect time to come. So we're just about to head into winter. Sorry, we're just about to head into autumn now.
Yeah.
So the leaves are going to start changing. In fact, some of them already started changing. So it's really good. The colors that you get in a Scottish autumn are just unbeatable. And if you're into photography, the light in autumn is just perfect, because that sun starts setting earlier in the day, and you start to get that golden hour, like just at that perfect time. So yeah, it's definitely September and October for those colors is an excellent time to come. If you're
Mhm.
looking for a bit warmer weather, then August to September would be my recommendation.
Mhm. Yeah. And how many days would you say one would need to visit the best places in Aberdeenshire?
think it really depends on your itinerary. The thing with Aberdeenshire is things are quite spread out. So depending on how you're getting around, whether you're hiring a car, booking onto individual tours, or taking public transport, that's going to really change your itinerary time. A good base is Aberdeen. There's buses to all areas of Aberdeenshire from Aberdeen. And Aberdeen itself is a fantastic city to explore and not one that has a massive tourist industry at the moment. They're starting to slowly build that tourist industry up now, but it's not one that's had a lot of tourists. So staying in Aberdeen and then branching out from there, I would say 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how much you want to get done. In Aberdeen over 2 days, you've got the art gallery, old Aberdeen, the old fishing village of Fick and Aberdeen Beach. There's a lot to see just within Aberdeen. So having those 2 days there, get settled in. And then from there, you can get the train to places further north or further south, or you can get a bus to you can get a bus out to Ellen to visit Bruges, and there's Ellen Castle. You can get a bus up to Huntly if you're interested in distilleries, and there's distilleries within Aberdeen itself as well. But yeah, so I definitely think depending on how much you want to see and your choice of transport, if you're hiring a car, a week is perfect. You can nip about Aberdeen and see so many places. But if you're taking public transport, give yourself 2 weeks. So you want to be able to really experience that and go to one place and experience it and be able to not be worrying about, oh, I need to rush onto a bus to get to the next place. So having the 2 weeks is a good shout if you're taking public transport.
Yeah. And apart from public transport and cabs, is it also possible to drive around? Earlier, you mentioned that it's flat lands. If someone wants
Yeah,
to take a rental car and drive themselves, would that be also okay?
definitely. I think it's probably the best way to explore Aberdeenshire.
Yes.
If you're feeling really adventurous, get yourself into a car and a tent or get yourself a camper van rented out. There's so many, Aberdeenshire is so flat and long that if you can stay where you're traveling to and really experience it like that, then an ideal way to travel is by rental car or camper van. It's definitely doable and it's very well, all the roads are very well connected. You're going to have a very smooth journey by car. It's not like the Highlands of Scotland where everything is single track roads up there and it's a little bit scary. Aberdeenshire, we've got full roads, we've got dual carriageways. We're well set up for car transport.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. If I ask you, what would be the cities or towns that one should pick while visiting Aberdeenshire? What are your personal favorites? If I have to ask you, maybe five, we can
Five,
recommend.
okay. I definitely recommend starting off in Aberdeen. You're going to get a good idea of the community of Aberdeenshire. If you start off in Aberdeen, the art gallery is an excellent place to start and then branch out from there. I highly recommend a visit to Stonehaven. You've got the inspiration for the castle from Brave with Dunnottar Castle there, and one of the best fish and chip shops that you're going to find in Aberdeenshire and one of the best ice cream shops that you're going to find in Aberdeen. Auntie Betty's ice cream. Yeah, Auntie Betty's ice cream. You need to go there.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the fish and chip shop off the top of my head at the moment, unfortunately. It's very good, and they're very good with dietary requirements as well. I'm allergic to gluten, so I can get gluten-free fish and chips from there, no problem.
Nice.
Definitely a place to stop for Auntie Betty's ice cream. You've got to try that. From there, it depends on your interests. If you're interested in castles, you're probably going to be castle hopping a bit. They're in the middle of nowhere, more in the wilderness of Aberdeenshire. And some you can get public transport to really easily, and some you will need to drive or book a tour. So, top castles I would recommend, definitely recommend Fyvie Castle and Castle Fraser. These are very Harry Potter-esque castles. They've got the turrets and that like old stonework as well. If you've got an interest in beer and the brewing process, heading over to Ellen is a really good place to go to. Great fish and chips, and you'll get Brewdog there. They do tours. You've got Ellen Castle and Ellen Castle Gardens, which you can tour. That's a ruined castle. You've got Riverside Walks, where you might see otters, which is an excellent place to go for that. If you've got time, having a walk from Brewdog into the centre of town is a really nice riverside walk. Next on my list would be Inverurie. Some very nice coffee shops in Inverurie. Oh, I forgot to mention, Ellen has one of the best coffee shops in Aberdeenshire with the Coffee Apothecary. They roast their own coffee, sorry. Here in Pitmedden, actually, they've got a cafe here and in Ellen. So yeah, Ellen's really good for coffee, beer, riverside walks. And then Inverurie is where you're going to get your more outdoorsy. You can get a train very easily from Aberdeen to Inverurie. And then you've got coffee shops there that are just lovely. You're going to find another gin shop there, which is really good. And if you are renting a car, Inverurie is really close to Bennachie, which is my favorite place in Aberdeenshire. So I highly recommend going there. There's not so much in the way of big towns and big cities in Aberdeenshire. We have Aberdeen, and then everything else is small. It's more countryside, and you're looking at that smaller side of towns than the large towns and cities that you see maybe a bit further south. I can't remember how many I've said, but I'll give you one more. Another really good place, and you can do it as a loop if you want to go to Peterhead Prison Museum. You can go through Peterhead, see the old prison museum, and then into Mintlaw, where you'll find Aden Country Park and the Museum of Farming and Country Life, as well as a ruined country home and some lovely woodland walks through there as well. But yeah, there's so many places. I could go on forever, but I'll stop there because otherwise we'll be here forever.
Yeah, no, sounds fascinating for sure. I definitely get the vibe that you'd be walking a lot, and then you can pick
Yes,
your drink of choice, gin or something else, beer maybe, and then you take stops to have those like a little bit of snacks and those drink of your choice, and then you set off again.
definitely. Yeah.
You mentioned that Binaki is your favorite spot, so what do you love about that?
Honestly, it's such a peaceful place to go. It is so different. Aberdeenshire is quite flat until you get to the Grampian Mountains. Where I live is relatively flat. So going to the top of Bennachie and you can just look out across all of Aberdeenshire. It's a little bit of a Lion King moment where you're like, oh, everything the light. But I just love it up. Honestly, the summit of Bennachie, it's full of history. It's an Iron Age fort ruin at the top there. They've been doing so many archaeology excavations on Bennachie over the past couple of years. The visitor centre is excellent. It's got all that information in it. But it's quiet and peaceful. My favorite thing to do is go there for sunrise, hike up in the dark with a head torch on. There's nobody else around, and you get to the top and see the sun coming up over the sea. It's the North Sea, and you just see the sun rising over the North Sea, and it's spectacular sunrises. Those really rich reds and oranges that you just, as soon as you imagine a sunrise, that's what you're seeing. And you're looking out over to places like Loch Nagar, which is a Munro. So if you're into the Munro bagging, there's a few of those up in Aberdeenshire as well. But yeah, it's mainly the peace and the history. It's a perfect marriage of everything Aberdeenshire is. It's got the outdoors and the history all in one place. Yeah, I think that's my favorite thing about it, having
Okay.
those two right next to each other.
Sounds quite fascinating. Definitely, like that view of the sunrise that you describe with all its colors, for sure. And then if it's also like a viewpoint in a way because it's elevated and the
Yeah,
rest of the land is flat. So must be quite a view from up top.
it's a wonderful view.
Let's get into discussing the food a little bit more. You mentioned the fish and chips that you enjoy in a couple of spots and Betty's ice cream. But what more would a traveler have as options that they should try out while they're in Aberdeenshire?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first one that everybody thinks of when they think of Scotland is obviously haggis. You've got to come and try haggis in Scotland, and there's loads of places that you can try that. We've got Six by Nico in Aberdeen, and they change their menu up every couple of weeks, and they do a very specific theme for their menu, and it's a lot of courses. So that's a really good place to visit. But yeah, if you're coming to Aberdeenshire, you may have also heard of a deep fried Mars bar. Apparently, that is something that everybody has to try. I would warn you in advance, it's a lot. It's one of those things that you get for the novelty, and you're like, wow, these Scottish people have weird taste in food. But yeah, deep fried Mars bar has to be on the list. But fish and chips and haggis are really the staple foods that are quite iconically Scottish. Fish and chips is iconically British.
Yeah.
But we do have really good fish and chips being so close to the coast here that if you're interested in vegan food, I really recommend Bio Cafe in Aberdeen. They have excellent options like waffles with all the toppings and scrambled tofu. Bio Cafe is definitely a recommendation as well.
Sounds like there are a lot of options for sure.
There's so many places, and haggis will be on most menus.
What about places to stay? Would it be a good idea to stay within Aberdeen and do day trips to the various towns you're visiting, or would it be better to pick some smaller locations for a stay to explore them?
I think it depends on how you're planning to travel. If you're planning to travel by public transport, then I would recommend staying in Aberdeen because that's where all of the public transport meets. So you've got your train, your bus, and all of that in Aberdeen. If you're planning to rent a car and drive, you don't have to limit yourself to staying in Aberdeen. There's loads of lovely hotels and stuff around. You could stay in the New Inn in Ellen. I've had friends recently stay there and they gave it a very good review. It's very close to me, so I've never stayed there myself, but it's a nice place to visit. They've got a good restaurant there as well. Places like Cullen and things like that, you can stay in camping pods and really be in nature. And there's loads of campsites if you're wanting to do a caravan. Aden Country Park that I mentioned earlier, you can stay there. They've got a caravan park attached to their grounds as well. So there's loads of places to stay outside of Aberdeen. If you have that ability to just hop in the car and drive around, I would recommend doing that. Yeah, it really depends on how you're planning to travel.
One should definitely go for at least a night's camping stay out in the woods because it sounds like just the activity you should do when you're in Aberdeenshire.
Definitely. I think Scotland as a whole, we have a really strong connection to the outdoors, and camping is one of the best ways to experience that. It's not for everyone, but I love it.
If you're planning to do a camping night out as well or stay in the woods, is there a seasonal restriction on that in any way?
No, the seasonal restriction would be what weather are you comfortable camping in? Some campsites will say that they're not open certain times of the year, usually in winter. There's other options. In Scotland, we have the right to roam. So if you're an experienced camper, an experienced hiker, and you are happy to wild camp, then you're welcome to wild camp anywhere in Scotland.
Oh,
Just being mindful of livestock, being mindful of any fences and things like that that are closed need to be reclosed after you've been through them. So it's definitely worth looking into the right to roam and the code for being outdoors in Scotland. Because if you're an experienced camper and you enjoy wild camping, then it's one of the best places to come to do that.
so it's totally up to the person who's visiting.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
definitely.
My next question is about what kind of souvenirs travelers can pick up while they're in Aberdeenshire. What would be your top suggestions?
Okay, yeah. So souvenirs, I think one of the best things for me, I studied art at university. So there's a big community of artists in Aberdeenshire. We have something called the Northeast Open Studios. So if you're here during that, that usually starts in September. If you're here during that, you can visit artists' studios, go in and have a look at what they're doing. So that's a really excellent activity. But to go back to souvenirs, I think getting original artwork from one of the many lovely tourist spots is really high on my list. You're going to get a beautiful landscape painting or a photograph that sums up your trip. And that's something Aberdeenshire does really well. It promotes its artists, and you're going to find really unique pieces of work in every gift shop you go into. So I definitely think that's high on my list of
Yeah.
souvenirs. A little bottle of whiskey is not going to disappoint, whether that is just to look nice on the bookshelf or to try. That has to be done. You're going to find loads of things covered in tartan over here. Scotland and tartan go hand in hand. So a little bit of a keyring with tartan on, or maybe a book about tartan, something like that is going to really remind you of your trip.
Yeah.
I think that those would be my top three. You've got to get something with tartan on it. You've got to get a bottle of whiskey and a really nice piece of art made by a local artist
Yeah.
to Aberdeen.
I love that suggestion about picking up something that a local artist made that would definitely make a great memory of your trip, and
Yeah,
you'd be supporting an artist simultaneously.
definitely.
For the whiskey, would you have a recommendation or anything that's your
I
favorite?
honestly, I'd have to get my partner in here. He's the whiskey drinker, but he's working, so I'll leave him to it. Whiskey wise, you're going to be pretty good as long as if you're going on a distillery tour, whether that is up in Huntly, whether that's in Aberdeen. If you're going on a distillery tour, talk to the guide, and they're going to be able to recommend a nice whiskey based on your flavor preferences. That's the thing about whiskey. Every single one tastes different. Tell them what kind of whiskeys you like, and they'll recommend something to you that you're going to be able to take home and enjoy. I think that would be my recommendation when it comes to whiskey. Your guides, tell them what you like and they'll find you something that suits.
Or maybe try a few during the tour.
Do a
Whatever
tasting.
sits, whatever sits better on your
But
palate.
if you're getting public transport, that's the perfect day to do your whiskey tour. So.
Would you share any kind of advice or tips with people who are visiting Aberdeenshire, like anything that they should be aware of or remember to bring?
Yes, bring your umbrella just in case. But I think the most important thing when you're in Aberdeenshire is honestly, everybody smiles at each other here. So being aware of that, because sometimes that's not normal. But if you're walking down the street, it's very common to get a smile, especially if you're in a smaller town or village. So just be aware of that. You'll get smiled at. You'll have conversations with locals. Go to the local pubs and talk to people, and they'll be able to recommend you even more places than we've had the time to today. I think one of the things about Scotland is it's such a welcoming place for tourists and for people to come and visit. Everybody enjoys sharing a little bit about Scottish culture because it's so unique, especially within the UK. We have a lot to tell you. I won't stop talking once you ask us, as you've found out today. If you're going outdoors, make sure you've got your insect repellent. We don't have mosquitoes, but we do have midges, making sure that you've got that insect repellent with you to keep them away from you. If you're going hiking, make sure you've got your boots. Aberdeenshire is relatively flat, but if you're going up Benahee or if you're heading into the Grampians or some of the Munros, definitely hiking boots on. It's not trainer terrain. It's definitely hiking
Mhm.
boot terrain. I think those would be my top tips of what to bring: umbrella, hiking boots, insect repellent, and your camera. You're gonna get some fantastic photos, so make sure you've got your camera on you.
With all the castles and the outdoors that you're going to explore, camera is a must, and you would be getting a lot of Instagram moments for sure.
Definitely.
It's been fun speaking to you, Eileen, and getting to see Aberdeenshire through your eyes. I hope that our viewers will find all the information that you've shared today useful. So, with that, I think we'll wrap up the session for today.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed talking about Aberdeenshire. So.